How do you know if you can afford to hire someone to help you do all the things that you do? I'm going to give you two different examples of how this might go. The first way is how most people do it and the way that you may have done it yourself. The second way is a better way. How do you know if you can hire somebody? Let's say we have an author. She is overwhelmed. She's burnt out. She's doing her own social media. She's doing her own ads. She's managing the person who's doing her editing. She's managing her cover design. She's doing all these things, and that doesn't even count actually writing books. And so then she does what we all do whenever we get super overwhelmed. She starts doom scrolling on social media. And because she's in like 24 author groups, she starts seeing posts about hiring people. Somebody hired a VA and somebody else outsourced their social media and somebody hired an ad agency. And she starts thinking, that's what I need to do. I need to get all these other things off of my plate. And then if I can get those things off my plate, I can spend more time writing. And if I spend more time writing, I can earn more money to pay for the person and have a higher profit. But she hesitates because money's already kind of tight and she's having trouble making ends meet month to month. So how do you get out of that cycle of, I need to hire somebody to help me make more money, but I don't have the money to hire somebody? And so she finally thinks, you know what? This is what businesses do. You have to spend money to make money. You have to take risks to grow. And so she decides to hire. And what happens in that first month, whether you're hiring someone directly, whether you're hiring a contractor, outsourcing, getting a vendor, there's always this onboarding process. There's rarely ever just an immediate return on that investment. So she goes through that first month or two. And in the meantime, she's spending money on that person. But that's okay. She kind of expected it. But after a couple of months, she's realizing that she's spending all this time managing the other person and reviewing their work and correcting their work. So all she did was trade the time she was spending doing the work for basically the same amount of time managing the work, but now she has to pay for it too. Then a few months in, a big expense comes up, something that she forgot was happening or something she didn't expect. And she looks at her bank account and she realizes she doesn't have enough money to pay for it. She's going to run out of money if she pays for this and the person that she hired. And so then what does she do? She panics, right? She tries to figure out ways that she can make both work. She considers maybe putting something on a credit card. Maybe she does go into debt. And then for the foreseeable future, she's fighting to get out of debt. And eventually she realizes that the only way out of this is to let go of the employee or to let go of the contractor or to cancel the relationship. And so now where does she sit? She's in the same exact position as she was in the beginning, where now she's still having to do everything herself, but now she's that much more money behind because of the money she spent on this, and she possibly messed up a relationship. But would there have been a better way? Would there have been another way to do this that could have avoided all that? So the second example is a real life example, something that actually happened. Same setup as before, overworked, overwhelmed, not enough money, not sure what to do, doom scroll social media, realize maybe we need to hire somebody. But this is where the difference is. This person watches this channel, or this person has read Profit First, or this person has a good CPA. She says to herself, I've done it this long by myself. I can do it by myself a little while longer. And in the meantime, I'm going to prepare. So she goes and sets up a brand new bank account at her current bank, and she names it something like Payroll Savings. She's going to fund that bank account with the amount of money that she would be paying someone to do the job that she wants. But she knows that she wants to hire someone good. She knows that she wants to spend more money on this, and she plans to set aside $2,000 a month to see if she can afford this. This does a couple of things. One, this shows that you can live without that money. It's proof that you can afford to pay someone to do that work for a while and not have any revenue in return for that work. And two, when you do decide to hire, it gives you a buffer to be able to operate on without having to dip into your current operating expenses. So she sets up the bank account, she starts setting aside the money, $2,000 a month. First month goes okay, a little bit tight, but she can make it. Month two, she can't quite afford the $2,000, and so she puts aside maybe just $1,000. Month three, she realizes that she can't put any money into the savings account, and another really large expense came up, just like in the first scenario. She checks her online banking and she realizes she doesn't have the money to cover it in her operating expense account, and that she's going to run out of money by the end of the month. Now, this part is really interesting. This is like the emotions behind it. She goes through the same panic as the first example. In her mind, the money that she's put away for payroll savings already doesn't exist. And so she's still trying to think of ways, how can I make this bill work? How can I pay for this? What can I cut? Should I just put this on debt? And then she remembers, oh wait, I've been setting aside all this money for payroll. I could just use that. But there's an aversion to moving money from an account that we set aside for a certain purpose and using it for something else. And then the realization dawns on her. This means I can't afford to hire somebody, right? That was the whole purpose of this. The whole point was to see, Can I operate my business without this money if I was paying somebody else? And I just proved to myself that no, I can't do it. And I'm always so interested in the emotions and the psychology behind money and what it means. I don't mean to minimize anybody who's gone through grief. I've gone through grief, so I know what that actually feels like. I don't mean to minimize it for people who've gone through it with like a really serious situation. But I'm telling you, this person went through a miniature stages of grief. At first, it was like, well, no, this can't be. I have to be able to make this work. And then it was, this doesn't make any sense. I'm mad about this. I can't believe that I have to pull money from this account. I was really counting on hiring somebody. And then finally, just the acceptance of it and realizing that this was the whole point of the whole process. And so she moved the money from the payroll savings account back into operating expenses. She used it to cover that expense. Little bit defeated, little bit discouraged, but recognizing that this may just mean that this is not the right season of the year to hire somebody. This might be the slow season where it doesn't make sense cash flow wise. Maybe it makes more sense to continue building up that payroll savings account. And whenever the busy season comes in, you can actually afford to hire somebody. And by the time the slow season comes again, that person has been onboarded and is doing enough work to actually help you raise more money and more revenue to where it starts to make sense. Contrasting the two examples, both authors ended up in the same position where they're doing the work themselves and they don't have any employees, they don't have any help. The difference though for the numbers is that the first author that we talked about, she's that much further behind in her finances because of all the money she's spent trying to get something to work that she really couldn't afford to make work. While the second author still has funds to be able to use to operate her business moving forward. On the emotional side of it though, the second author now can move forward knowing that she planned ahead, that she tried something and that it didn't work. And she knows that she avoided a much worse situation by planning for this ahead and letting herself have those emotions in the beginning whenever the stakes were lower, rather than having them on the back end whenever they have a much bigger ripple effect. And this can be used for any major purchase that you're thinking of doing or any ongoing expense. Anytime you're just not sure, can I afford this? Is it the right time? Set up a new bank account and just start putting the amount of money aside in that bank account for a while. If your business can live without it, then you've proved that you can afford it and you have the money available to fund it for a few months. If your business can't live without it, then you've just proved that you couldn't afford it anyway, and so it wasn't a good idea. We've been doing a little mini test of this in our author community called the 1% Challenge, where we're challenging authors to set aside just 1% of their revenue into another bank account to see if their business can live without it. Because the idea is if your business can live on 100% of its revenue, it can live on 99% too. It's just getting used to the habit of creating a bank account, transferring money, and seeing what happens if you can live without it. And then we're going to increase that a little bit at a time until it actually starts to become impactful. If you want to check that out and you want to be in on that, check the link in the description. You should be able to access it there. And this video should be posting on or around Thanksgiving. So I just want to say that I'm thankful for you for watching. I'm thankful for my team, for my family, and for everything that I get to do. Wish you all the best, and I will see you next time.